Growing up, I was somebody that always hated school. It wasn't until after college that I was introduced to a gentleman that really changed my life. And what he did is for the first time in my life, he gave me a passion for God's Word. And as I was studying the Scriptures, there was a point in time when I started to realize that God had something to say about all of life. I never knew the God of science. I never knew the God of history, the God of art, beauty, music, government, law. I never knew this God. I finally started to realize that God was the source of all knowledge. And that was the missing piece in my life, because I realized for the first time, the more I learned, the bigger God became. Once I discovered that, my thirst and appetite for learning just was unleashed. And it was the idea that if that got me excited about learning for the first time in my life, that maybe there's something there, that if we can put students in that same setting and same position and let them see also how God is the source of all knowledge, that maybe we could also unleash this desire that was probably always within them, but has never been released.
I never dreamed that I would be in the field of education, because actually I went to college, but I did not like it. I was not a Christian at the time, and I was just bored and uninspired, and very much like Davis's story, and just was not motivated by it. So that was the last thing I thought I would be involved in. Getting to meet a lot of young people, I was just motivated by if they're not equipped properly and trained properly, that it's just a matter of time before that really affects their lives, which affects our nation. Together, we just felt God was leading us into this next step of developing something.
So when we began to talk about the program and think it through and try to plan out what would be most effective for the young people, we all of us agreed that the program was to be much more than just an academic program where we're trying to transform a mind, but we knew that at the very heart of it, it was to be about the transformation of a life.
So I wanted an education system where there was a real strong bond and relationship between both student and faculty. That was important. The other one is I wanted the students to be able to focus on their subject matter, where they're not spread between 5 or 6 subjects at once, but is there a way we could travel through this studying just one subject at a time, where each subject builds off the preceding subject? Because what I wanted students to see is what I saw in my journey is the unity of knowledge, rather than the fragmented knowledge that I was introduced with education. But it got to a point where I just felt it was time, as a lot of these ideas have been percolating for several years. It's one thing to share a vision. It's another thing when you start to realize that people want to join it. We launched our first class in January of 2011 with 25 students. It was a very surreal moment. It really hit on the first day of class, that you have this group of students, of 25 students, and you're looking at them and you're saying, you actually took me up on my vision. You actually believed me and took me up on it, took me up on the offer to the point where you're actually here.
And I think Davis has often said that you're more than a brain. And so that was always the heart of all of us, that the program itself would not be just an academic program, but it would have the transformation of a life at its very heart.
We want students to begin to grow in wisdom and virtue. We want students to begin to think Christ's thoughts, to feel the way He feels, to choose what He chooses, to learn to will what He wills, to value what He values, and practice His practices until we begin to take on more of His personality. And by doing so, we actually become more fully human. We actually become the way He designed us to be.
We think education is far more than just academics. We want young people to live life well.
It's not just the intellectual side of us, but we understand that we are a spiritual being, a moral being, a social being, an emotional being, and a physical being. And so what does it mean to educate the person, not just the brain?
To see that transformation is it just doesn't get any better. So it's a joy and a privilege for myself, and I know Gene and Davis as we started this thing. Yeah, it's just tremendous. That's what really motivates us.